Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We're going to continue speaking about Yogamaya, but in the beginning we're going to read something that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said. We're going to read something Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said because we were discussing Yogamaya's work in Krishna Lila and how it's difficult to understand. So we're going to read something that he said about it. And I believe we have the internet situation resolved. And in order to celebrate that, we're going to begin class with Kirtan. Hare Krishna. Gauranga Nityananda, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodhanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodhanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Panachari Jamuna Tira Panachari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodhanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Sodhanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Chari Jamuna Tira Pana Chari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Shuranandana Vrajajana Ranjana Shuranandana Janaranjana Suranandana Bhaja Janaranjana Suranandana Bhaja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vana Chari Jamuna Tira Vana Chari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Too fast. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. O Premanande, Hari Hari Bo. So now it's time to blast your mind. We're going to read something Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, very purifying, to help us put in perspective the Krishna Lila with the gopis and all the interesting things Krishna does, which may be difficult to understand for ordinary people. Are you ready for this? Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. It's very exciting news from the spiritual world. So, by confiscating the clothes of the gopis, Krishna obtained happiness. That is Krishna's sense gratification. I cannot object. I cannot say, let us see Krishna display sense control in his own conduct. Why is he a sense enjoyer? I cannot say that. Krishna will not become a slave to my whims. In other words, he's not going to become a slave to what I want him to be or what I think he should be according to my moral considerations. Right? And first thing Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said is, it makes Krishna happy. It made him happy when he stole the clothes. So our position as devotees is, if something makes Krishna happy, that's it. That's perfect. It makes us happy, right? If something makes Krishna happy and doesn't make us happy, there's something wrong with us, not with him, right? Yes, of course. Of course, there's a lot of things wrong with us. That could possibly be one of them. Why is he doing that? It's not moral. It's a bad example. Because it makes him happy. And that's why he does it. And if Krishna does something that makes him happy and makes you unhappy, who's got the problem? Him or you? Okay, we continue reading. If he so wills, Krishna will not become a slave to our whims. If he so wills, supremely independent Krishna can demonstrate sense restraint, as he did in his form as Gaur Sundar. Yeah, so he was sense-controlled as Gaur Sundar. That was his choice. He was setting that example. By that example, he informs us that Krishna's devotees do not have the right to steal the gopis' clothing. Only Krishna has got that prerogative. Our duty is to act at our level of eligibility, accepting everything conducive for Krishna's service, and thus attempting to assist him in his enjoyment with his devotees. So let me read a little more. This was explained to a professor in, I don't know when this was explained, maybe the early, sometimes in the 1920s perhaps. A professor from America came. And he explained this because the professor, he was having a hard time understanding, as many professors do, Krishna's so-called immoral activities. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta continued, Krishna's loving affairs are not temporal, like the lustful romances of dramatic heroes and heroines, such as Romeo and Juliet, or even of ideal spouses. In other words, they're not like anything, temporary affairs of this world. Lust, as prevalent in this world, is merely a mental passion, whereas the lust of the transcendental world has its own form. Here, lust is always goaded by the enemy, one of the 6 passions. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, envy. So, lust in this world doesn't exist alone. It's not favorable. It's not pure. Whereas in the transcendental region of Krishna, the loveliness of his spiritual body ever drives the lust for Krishna, which takes form as sublimated love, or the desire to gratify the immaculate senses of Krishna. Krishna's amorous sports are not to be called indecency, because Krishna is the only one unrivaled enjoyer, embodiment of real truth and spiritual despot. So, whatever Krishna does is perfect, and the devotee just wants to satisfy Krishna's desire. So there's no lust in the heart of the devotee. Their only desire is that Krishna will be happy. And obviously no lust in the heart of Krishna. And it has nothing to do with it. His point is it has nothing to do with lust of this world. And lust of this world is contaminated. And that is the highest expression of love. And what is the love of the gopis? They want to satisfy Krishna's lust, so-called lust. So interesting, isn't it? That something so high and esoteric, which can hardly be understood, seems to resemble something so debased in this world. And naturally, that's why it's misunderstood, because you have to have some reference point of who Krishna is before you can understand this. And that's why it said don't jump to the 10th canto, but first understand Krishna in his supremely pure position. And as we were saying last, I think Friday, position of a devotee is just to make Krishna happy, and whatever makes Krishna happy, that's perfect. Perfect for us, perfect for him. And that is the attitude of a devotee. If it makes Krishna happy, I'll do it. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, there's only one enjoyer, and that's Krishna. And so everyone else is enjoyed by Krishna. There's only one male, only one Purusha existing in the universe. We may call ourselves men, and sometimes we are called Purusha because Purusha means enjoyer. But Purusha, as the definition of male, there's only one enjoyer. There's only one enjoyer. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said something interesting. He said, you don't enjoy prasadam, but the prasadam enjoys you. You don't eat prasadam, but the prasadam eats you. What does that mean? That bhoga which is offered for Krishna's enjoyment. And so when we partake of it, or we say we honor it, we are not partaking in it in the mood of enjoyers, but we are receiving, we are Krishna's happy. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Krishna's happy when we take prasadam. It gives him pleasure. So by taking prasadam, Krishna's happy. Chatur Vida Sri Bhagavat Prasadam. The spiritual master is happy. Krishna's happy. Chatur Vida Sri Bhagavat Prasadam. You know that verse? Swadhana Triptim. Triptim means satisfied. The Guru is satisfied when he sees his disciples tasting prasadam. It makes Prabhupada happy, makes your Guru happy, makes the Acharyas happy, and makes Krishna happy when you take prasadam. So if you think that when I take prasadam, Krishna will be happy, that's the right mood. Not that I'm the enjoyer of this prasadam. And everything in existence, not everything in existence, everything that you can engage in Krishna's service that makes him happy, then that means you are being enjoyed by Krishna, because what makes Krishna happy is to enjoy, because he's the enjoyer. Okay. I have to get my head together. This is not going well. I didn't take my magic brain pills today. Okay, let's say that again. There's only one enjoyer, and it's not me and it's not you. It's Krishna. So everyone else is enjoyed. So our position as devotees is to be enjoyed by Krishna. So whatever we do, even taking prasadam, that is for Krishna's pleasure, doing kirtan. And one thing that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta expressed many times, and I've also expressed it many times, is that when we take darshan of the deity, we take darshan in the mood of Krishna being the enjoyer and we the enjoyed. Here is your servant coming in front of you to be enjoyed. And you might think, well, does Krishna really enjoy seeing me? And the answer is yes, he does. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta spoke about this a lot. And he said, if you see the deities in the mood of you enjoying your eyes, your vision, because we enjoy through our eyes. So he said, the deity is not an object of your enjoyment of your eyes, but we are the object of the deity's enjoyment. And he said, unless you see the deity that way, you're not actually seeing the deity. You'll never actually see the deity if you see the deity as in the mood of, I'm enjoying. It's always in the mood of, I am the servant. So as long as you remember you're the servant and you're taking darshan of the deity is for Krishna's pleasure, that he's seeing you, then you're actually seeing the deity. And we told that story many times. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was at a distance from the deity and he took off his glasses, And the disciple said, Guru Maharaj, you want to go closer so you can see, or you don't have your glasses, you can't see? He said, no, I'm not seeing the deity is seeing me. I'm not taking darshan, the deity is taking darshan to me. And I know for some of us that sounds strange because we're thinking, why would Krishna enjoy seeing me? But the point is, the senses of the conditioned soul are used for enjoyment, and seeing is one of the ways we enjoy. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is making the point that your senses are not meant for your enjoyment. So you should not have that mentality when you're seeing the deity, that I will enjoy seeing. You might enjoy seeing, but if you are in the mood of I'm a servant, Krishna, I'm here in the temple for Krishna's pleasure because I'm the object of his enjoyment. He's the only enjoyer. I'm not the enjoyer. He's the only one. Maybe you should write that down because this is tough to get. That he's the only enjoyer, no one else is, right? We're having trouble with that for like millions of lifetimes. Having trouble getting that one. Did you get it? Krishna's the only enjoyer. Yeah, I think I got it. All right. But then how do we act? We don't always act that way. Rishikesh Sevanam, that my senses are owned by him for his service. We don't always act that way. So he expressed that many, many, many times. Actually, it was foundational to his philosophy. He's the enjoyer, not you. So one man, it was very interesting. One man knew Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was his father. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very kind on him. He used to meet and talk. He knew the family. He knew Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's brothers. And so he was a professor. And generally, I guess, being a bona fide professor, he had a lot of scholarship and not a lot of bhakti. So it appears from the story that he lacked bhakti, but he had a lot of knowledge. So he came to see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he said, many times I met your father, we discussed. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, you never saw my father. You are not qualified to see my father. He's a transcendental personality. You just come to enjoy. You've never seen my father. Of course, the professor was offended. Another time, some well-known person was coming, and one of the disciples said to him, you're not eating prasadam. The prasadam is eating you. You're not enjoying prasadam. Prasadam's enjoying you. He took it as offense, like, what do you think, I'm coming here to eat your food? That was how Bhaktisiddhanta preached. Very heavy, right? So he wanted to make this point that there's one enjoyer, and that's Krishna. And so we should always be in that mood that everything's for Krishna's enjoyment. Like when we do, there's so many things that we do that are enjoyable, then it's difficult not to be in the mood that I'm the enjoyer. Prasadam probably being the main one. But kirtan, nice kirtan, done well. The deity's dressed beautifully. But always the mood is servant. I'm servant of the holy name, servant of the deity. I'm servant of prasad. I'm serving prasad by taking prasadam. That's always the mood. So that's something we have to understand. And that's something which he expressed over and over and over again. Okay? We have some comments on that. That raised some eyebrows. That is a hard concept. So Jai Radhe, Radhe, Jai Radhe, Radhe Radhe, says, that might be a hard concept for devotees. They might think, why would Krishna enjoy seeing me? I am fallen. Yeah. Well, Andrea answers, because you showed up. Exactly. Here I am, Krishna. It's not like, here I am, You like my sari, you like the way I look today. No, it's not like that. It's like, I am your devotee. I've come here to honor you. I've come here to worship you. I've come here to be blessed by you. And Krishna says, yes, you're my devotee. I'm happy to see you. So that's the idea. We have to understand, at least Krishna likes to see his devotees, even the ones that aren't so great. Krishna likes to see them. So Krishna likes to see you. Isn't that nice? I was at Mangalarti this morning, and I was thinking that way, and I admit that sometimes it does seem strange that why would Krishna enjoy seeing me? But sometimes when I go to Arti, I just I'm in the mood, Krishna, I'm here. I got out of bed early. It was freezing. There was ice on the windows of our car in Florida. Yeah, you can feel sorry for me. There was ice on the windows of the car, and we have no heat in the temple, and we have to leave the doors open because of COVID. But we have Mangalarti. There's like 20, 25 devotees. At least 20 devotees every day go. We have Mangalarti with all the doors open, and, it's been cold like that a lot. One morning it was 32 is 0 centigrade. One morning it was below that, like 5 below. It was 26, 29, which is 5 degrees Fahrenheit below. It's pretty cold for us. For us sissies here in Florida, that's pretty cold. And so, okay, it's 4 in the morning. I should get up and go to Mangalarti. But the house is warm. And it's not warm outside, and it's not warm in the temple. So if I show up, don't you think Krishna is happy that I got myself out of bed, bathed, put on tilak, dhoti kota, and went to the temple, and despite the cold, was there singing and dancing? Yeah, I think we can understand that. That's easy. And a side point about tilak, the controversial tilak. No, it's not controversial. Well, sometimes you may not wear tilak. You don't want to scare people away. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was never seen without tilak, ever. And when he came out of, I don't want to say the shower, I don't know if they had showers, but after he bathed, he wouldn't let anybody see him because he washed his tilak off. So after he bathed, he would put tilak on, like right away. Isn't that interesting? You like that? That's the tilak story. Okay, so sometimes it might be inconvenient for you to go to the temple, right? But you go anyway, right? So don't you think Krishna's pleased? Yeah, he is. So that means I'm not the enjoyer, because if I were the enjoyer, I would just stay in the house. It's much warmer. Or maybe I wouldn't get up so early, right? Or just, I'd sleep more, stay in the house and have some cup of tea and be put on my warm slippers and be nice and comfy. So there's, so that's also in the sense that Krishna sees you're trying, you're coming. So it's Krishna sees your effort, you're trying, you're showing up. You're my devotee, trying to be my devotee. So he likes that. Don't you think? Wouldn't you like that if you were Krishna? Sometimes you actually might need to think, well, yeah, actually, if I were Krishna, I would like that also. If my devotees were coming to see me. Okay. Jyotirmai says, if this is the mood that I go to the temple to have darshan, to let them enjoy my sight, so to be always well taken care of, nicely dressed, decent, it's the right thing to do. Yeah. Sometimes I see devotees come to the Sunday feast in a t-shirt and shorts, and I just think, it's not ideal. It's not, it's not the way you appear before God exactly. You might say, well, I'm a cowherd boy and I wear my dhoti up, up high. So shorts are the same thing. No, we shouldn't think like that. So yeah, we should dress chastely, clean clothes. Whether you wear devotional or not, you should dress like ladies and gentlemen. And that's true in any religious setting. People dress appropriately, don't they? So Andreas says, not everyone goes to the temple. Not everyone sings kirtan or takes darshan. Engage the senses in the service of the Lord. Yeah. So it's the principle. When you have deities in your home, you offer your food, you take prasadam, you chant japa. Japa is not for your enjoyment. You read Bhagavatam, it's not for your enjoyment, although it's enjoyable, but it's to become a better devotee so that your consciousness and your actions become enjoyable to Krishna. So if we just get this idea that in the whole universe, all material and spiritual universes, the whole spiritual universe, and all the different planets in the spiritual universe, and all the universes in the material world, there's only one enjoyer, and it's not us. If we just get that, then we basically have the essence of Krishna consciousness. And if we can just live that, then it's going to be quite easy to practice Krishna consciousness. That's just one. We just have to get that one thing. And we all know that getting that one thing in our head, theoretically, that's not so difficult. But getting it in the heart, that's another thing. Right? So that's what we're up against. Isn't it? Is it not? It is. A day old. I don't know. And this other tea, I think is 2 days old. Hold on a second. I don't know. Might get drunk if I drink it. Okay, you have more comments. He's able to glance at us, give blessings. Yeah, another good point. And Gopinath's putting up in a plug for Mangalartik. Mangalartik is great. After that, your day is always good. Yeah, Mangal means auspicious. So you go to Mangalartik, your day is auspicious. Or you can have Mangalarti in your home. It's auspicious. Another thing I was thinking about, it's not just going to Mangalartik or just taking darshan, but it's being absorbed in the activity. Because, sometimes devotees, they're doing everything, but they're not feeling so Krishna conscious. And it may be, there could be many reasons, but it may be that they're not absorbed in what they're doing. Their consciousness it's not present to what they're doing. They're not going deeply into what they're doing. They're not meditating deeply or not experiencing deeply the mood of whatever it is. In this case, prayers to the spiritual master at Mangalarti. So then they're not really experiencing the depths of Krishna consciousness. And they're not, and then they might say things, I don't feel like I'm very Krishna conscious. But the fact is, everything we're doing, if you just be mindful of it, what is this? What is this prayer? What is the Mahamantra? What is Guru Vashtakam? What is the Tulsi Puja? What is the Guru Puja? What is being said when in class? What is being said when I read? You try to go deeper, then you won't have that experience. You'll have the experience of being very much saturated in Krishna consciousness, very satisfied, relishing, and so forth. Have you ever gone in the temple and paid obeisances, and you just get up, and it's like, it didn't calculate. It was just, you just said it because that's what you're supposed to do. We've all done that, right? But if you go deeply into Prabhupada's pranam, namaste saraswati deve, he's a servant of Bhaktisiddhanta, and there's so much in how Prabhupada perfectly served Bhaktisiddhanta. There's like a whole universe of realization of how he is the ideal servant here's the ideal disciple of the ideal guru, and how Prabhupada did that. It's just amazing how Prabhupada did it. We know he spread it all over the world, but he did it exactly in line with the Siddhanta, Bhaktisiddhanta, and all the strategies he used and the principles that he established. He just followed it perfectly. So it's nice to think like that when you say Namaste Saraswati Devi. Gauravani. And what is Gauravani? He's preaching the words of Gauravani, the words of Lord Chaitanya. What is Lord Chaitanya giving? He's giving prema in the mood of the residents of Braja, not a little thing. Prabhupada's not just preaching some philosophy. This is the highest thing ever given and Lord Chaitanya ever gave. Chidada dattam nijagupta vitam. He's giving this confidential treasure, which he hasn't given, since 100 millenniums. So, and Prabhupada's giving that thing. That's not Gauravani. That's like, whoa. You should be on the floor paying obeisances like this. Namaste Saraswati. Oh my God, what a servant. Gauravani, that's such a high thing. Banging your head on the ground, ecstasy. And then Nirvisesha Sunyavadi, the world is full of Mayavadis and impersonalist voidists, and Prabhupada's coming to teach you about the God that nobody knew existed, the personal God. Oh my God, that's so phenomenal. Again, bang your head on the ground. And then delivering the Western worlds. No one has given this. If Prabhupada, like we always say, if Prabhupada didn't come, where would I be? What would I be doing? You don't even have to ask the question. You know where you would be and what you'd be doing. The same thing you were doing before you were a devotee. Just probably more unhappy doing it. And so when we say the prayer, or whatever prayer you say to your spiritual master, you go deeply into it. You're chanting the prayers of Tulsi. You're trying to understand the mood of those prayers, the mood of the author, the mood of the author. Vishwanath Chakravarti, the author of the Guru Vashtakam, he's glorifying his guru. And, he's just trying to end Narottam Das Thakur and the Guru Puja prayer. You're just trying to go more deeply. So, and more deeply in your chanting, obviously. And when you do that, then you will feel, I am drowning in an ocean of nectar. Otherwise, we kind of feel like we're on the shore looking at the ocean of nectar, but not really in it, not really experiencing it, just kind of burning up from the heat of the material world, but not in this cooling nectarian ocean. So I think this is extremely important, because one of the challenges we all have is raso varjam. Taste the rasa. Raso varjam. You give up rasopiyasya, but you know the verse. Raso varjam rasopiyasya. Give up the lower taste for the higher taste. This is so important. And if this isn't happening, then our spiritual life becomes very difficult, and we start looking towards material things, thinking, well, if I don't find pleasure in spiritual life, I'm a pleasure-seeking person. I have to find it somewhere. So then we begin contemplating material pleasure. But when you're present to your spiritual practice and it becomes a profound thing for you, everything becomes profound, then you're experiencing the rasa. You're in that ocean, and then you're fine. You're very safe. So many devotees have said, I'm not really happy as a devotee, or I'm not that happy, or it seems like non-devotees are happier than I am. Yeah, it's true. If you give up sense gratification and you're not feeling the profundity of Krishna consciousness because you're just doing it ritualistically, yeah, non-devotees in theory are experiencing sense gratification, and you're not replacing that with Krishna consciousness. So they are, in theory, happier, at least externally, for a while. So that's part of the reason, because you're giving up something, and if you don't replace it, that's not a good idea, is it? So just think about, okay, I'm giving up a lot of material pleasure. I have to replace it with spiritual pleasure. Otherwise, I'm just kind of in no man's land, neither here nor there. So you all know this, and we've all experienced this. So my point is that if you take your spiritual practice more in a mindful way, to be more conscious of what you're doing, what does this mean? When you're studying the philosophy, just go more deeply, trying to understand what does this mean? What does it mean? Sometimes you read philosophy and you might think, oh, this is so boring, it's philosophy. Don't take it that way. Take an interest in it. Understand the depth of Krishna consciousness. Even if it seems boring, and this Shastra said this, and Madhvacharya said this, and Viragavacharya said that, and you just think this is like, has nothing to do with anything. It's just like philosophy about monism and dualism and this and that. Try to just somehow or other just go into it and understand it, because beneath that veneer of this is just philosophy, there's another level. And when you get to that other level, then you're in the ocean. Then you're good. Then you cool off, and you're like, okay, I'm happy. I'm satisfied being a devotee. This is good. I like this. This is what I want to do. And then you think, I want to do more of this. I want to see the deity every day. I want to chant better every day. I want to study more deeply every day. I want to appreciate the bhajans every day. Then you're good. As I say, you're good to go. Yeah. That's what the Buddhists call mindfulness. So, Kshrimani says, you can be there, but really not be there. Yeah. Are you seeing the deity? Are you actually seeing the deity? Did you actually see them? Or were you just like looking at them, but you didn't see them? We know sometimes we read something and our attention is distracted. Someone's talking to us and our attention is distracted, so we don't hear. We never really read what we read, and we didn't really hear what we heard, although sound was going in our ear. And although we were looking at the printed material, our mind was somewhere else. So that's a problem. I think that also is, I don't know, it's just a theory, but I think that problem is exacerbated by the fact that social media, it distracts us all the time. Our mind is like shooting around. And so it's harder to be mindful because our lives are more multitasked. Of course, if you have 8 children, probably it's hard to be mindful also. So that may not be the actual reason, but that's, it's a possibility. I'll just say it's a possibility for you to consider if all that social media and doing, 5 things at once is causing a problem in your Krishna consciousness that you can't get absorbed because you're used to being in 5 places at once. It's possible. Okay. Jyotirmaya says, I wish I could go to Mangal Arati. I miss it so much. It's been 6 months that due to COVID restrictions, I cannot go in the temple in Florence because it is in another region. And the power and the joy, yeah, it's true. Power and joy I received during Mangal Arati cannot be compared to anything. When I could, I left home at 2 in the morning. Oh my God. In order to be there at 4 to be on time. This is the most precious thing that this mess has taken away from me. That is amazing and that is inspiring. Okay, everyone. You think you have an excuse? Well, Jyotirmaya drove 2 hours, left at 2 a.m. That's amazing. This is amazing. I used to live in LA and there's people that live across the street from the temple who don't go to Mangal Arati, and she's driving 2 hours. Wow. All I can say, Jyotirmaya, is a big wow to you. So Christe says, I had a realization that lately when I was chanting japa, I was expecting to feel absorbed in it. But actually, to feel like that is the mercy of Krishna. So on the days when I do not manage to have deep japa experiences, I don't make myself feel as bad. You can always expect more. So in the days when I do not manage to have deep japa experiences, I don't make myself feel as bad and just appreciate. Yeah. Yeah, even when the japa is bad, at least you're chanting. And Krishna's like trying to get in the door. You got it kind of locked and bolted. And he's like, let me in, let me in. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna. You know, we're all over the universe. And he's trying to get in. But at least he's there, you know, trying to get in. And we have the holy name and we're chanting. It's better than nothing. And Sakyaras is here, reminding us, Namaste Saraswati Devi, or Devam, depending. Saraswati Devi. Yeah, Sakyaras, I read that, Namaste Saraswati Devi. We used to say Devam back in the old days, but someone corrected that and said, no, the proper is Devi. Saraswati. Saraswati Devi. That's what I mean. You could throw in what you know. That's what when we were given that mantra, we were given both options. Namaste Saraswati Devam or Deve. We were given both. Which means, you know, servant. Saraswati. It's not Saraswati. Everyone, it's not Saraswati, it's Saraswati. It's actually Saraswati. And if you're Bengali, it's actually Saraswati. Saraswati. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribrajak Acharjo Sri Srimad Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. So they say, if you want to pronounce Bengali properly, get a gulab jamun, put it in your mouth, and speak. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And then that's how they speak. You think they have a gulab jamun in their mouth. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa. Take out that gulab jamun from your mouth. No, that's how they speak. What is the proper clothing for devotee women? My clothes are always clean, but not dressy. Cotton. If cotton is pure, wool is pure, silk is pure. Silk is more pure than cotton. Silk you can purify just by putting it out in the air. Wool you purify by putting it out in the air. Cotton you purify by washing with water, and synthetics are always impure. You can never purify them, even if you wash them for the rest of your life. So if you're a woman, yeah, you know, look at how women are covered with a sari. And if you don't have a sari or don't want to wear a sari, then wear clothes that cover you like a sari, that, you know, cover those parts of the body. Yeah. That's the idea. You know, the idea for a woman when she dresses is not to draw attraction to herself, especially when, well, of course, that's why women dress nicely, to draw attraction to themselves. But when you go to a temple, you don't dress to draw attraction of other people. You want to draw Krishna's attraction. So, you know, you don't want to dress in a way like, wowie zowie, look at her. You know, then everyone's looking at you instead of the deity. See, you don't want that. Right? Clean, but, you know, nice. Don't look like a schlump, Sydney, when you go to the temple. Those of you who are not from America probably don't know what a schlump is, but kind of a messy person. Right? Is that what it means, Sydney? I think so. Haven't used that word in about 50 years or more, but... So Jyotirmaya says, my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Kadamba Kanana Swami, says that a devotee woman should be dressed in sari. This is the spiritual dress for a woman. If not possible, gopi dress is allowed. And Sydney doesn't live near a temple, so I don't know if she has any of those. So, you know, just keep your body covered. And then you might say, you know, I'm not that young. I'm not that beautiful. What's the big deal? No, it's a principle. Just keep it covered. And I can tell you, ladies, no matter how old you are and how unattractive you think you are, there's always some man who's going to find you attractive. I can guarantee you that. So don't think, I'm too old to be attractive now. Not until you're like 99. What can you say that? Okay. Yeah, probably you could buy online. Or when you go to Dallas, maybe. They must have sari stores there. I don't know. I never bought a sari, so I can't say. I'm sure there's sari stores all over the place. And I'm sure you'll find a sari store that will ship. Stephanie says, someday a devotee organized a study group of the songbook, and it changed all our experience of programs just because we knew exactly what we were singing. Exactly right. So this is so interesting because, part of the idea is if I chant a song in a traditional language like Sanskrit or Bengali, that's the original language that it was written in, so it carries the flavor, the mood that they're right, even if you don't understand it. And that's true. But once the Gurukula boys, they were chanting shlokas to Prabhupada, Bhagavad Gita shlokas. It's really, all these like 5-6-year-old boys just like, knowing Sanskrit. It's really great, right? And then Prabhupada said, they chanted a few verses, and he said, so what do the verses mean? And nobody knew what they meant. And he said, this is not good. This is not good. I mean, it's good that you learned the Sanskrit. It's just not good that you didn't learn the English. So I think sometimes that's overlooked because Sanskrit is our sacred language and it's purifying. There's no doubt it's purifying to chant it, but it's more purifying to know what you're chanting. Same thing, Stephanie, when you take prasadam, to be in that mood that Krishna enjoyed this. Or kirtan, this is service to Krishna. It's not to glorify myself as a great singer or musician. It's to glorify Krishna. When I do kirtan publicly, my meditation is, if I can please Krishna with this kirtan, then the people will be pleased. The people will, if Krishna is pleased with the kirtan, the people will benefit. They'll be pleased. If they're pleased with the kirtan, they'll advance. So that's the proper mood. And so you could meditate on so many things you do and being in that proper mood. So that's a nice realization. So Andrea says, Andrea, Lord Krishna's devotee, says, their body is performing delegated duties. The mind is agitated by thinking on completing the task to go to the next thing, opposed to keeping the mind on the task that is being performed for the Lord and devotees, and to keep the enthusiasm. When you have some devotees being praised for their beautiful kirtan, the devotees washing the dishes is overlooked. It takes a toll on the dishwasher. No, I really like that. We're thinking of completing a task and going on to the next thing while we're doing the task. Yeah, I think that's part of the reality of life in this world. We have so many things going on. Be careful not to have too many things. Otherwise, you can't maintain it. And she made a nice point. If someone leads a nice kirtan, it's natural to go up to that devotee and say, Prabhu, that was really nice kirtan, thank you. But if someone cleans the pots, who knows? And who goes and inspect the pots? Prabhu, those pots, oh my God. Thank you so much. I've never seen the pots sparkle like that, ever. Thank you again so much. I don't think any pot washers, maybe the president might thank him, but other than that, the mass of devotees, I don't think they just naturally wouldn't thank a pot washer. Although now that you know this, maybe you can all go into the kitchen and find a pot washer and go, thank you, Prabhu, those pots are amazing. You are an amazing pot washer. But Andrea is saying, kind of not a lot of name and fame in pot washing, more in kirtan. And that could be a motivator, unfortunately. Okay. Christy says, I'm afraid to dress too nicely in the temple to not draw attention. Yeah, that's true. You want to draw Krishna's attention, not other people. But it also, Krista, it also depends on your consciousness. Because if you're in the right consciousness, even if you draw a man's attention, they can feel your consciousness, and it'll neutralize. It generally will neutralize their. It's, how should I say this? It's hard for a man. Of course, some men may disagree. Maybe I'm just speaking subjectively, but let's just say it's more difficult for a man to have sexual or lusty feelings towards a woman who doesn't have those feelings towards them. So if a woman is, let's say she's all dressed up nicely, but she's thinking, I want to dress up nicely for Krishna. And that's her mood, and some man is attracted. Her mood will greatly neutralize that, because it takes two to tango. So there's no reciprocation from your consciousness of what they're feeling, and it'll actually purify them. It's true, If you're a woman and you're pure, you're chaste, that purifies the men around you, because there's no facility, there's no room for any kind of improper dealings, improper thinking, because it's not within you. So there's no reciprocation. So they may have it, but it bounces back neutralized. So, I can't say for every man in the universe that would be true, but I would say for most devotees that will be true. Unless they're really out there, which most men are not. That's what will happen. It'll neutralize it. If we have any men here, they could confirm or deny that. So other women are agreeing, if I dress too nice, the men will be running after me. I don't think they'll run after you, but yeah, you don't want to distract their minds. You need to purchase a large print Bhagavad Gita. Depends where you are. What country are you in? There's a lot of Andreas out there, but I don't know which one you are. You want it in English? BBT. Krishna Culture, Krishna.com. Start with Krishna.com and then they'll have it. Okay. Chotarmai, as a bona fide Greek, says, my mood is, who cares about people? I want Krishna like me. If you knew that you were about to meet the president of your country, wouldn't you dress nicely? What to say when you were about to meet Lord himself? Yeah. The other day I read how Prabhupada once came to the kitchen, which was very nicely cleaned, and he inquired, who cleaned it, and thanked her. Wow. Okay, so everyone, go in your kitchen, in your temple, and if it's clean, find out who cleaned it, and thank them. And if it's not clean, find out who didn't clean them, and slap them in the face. Hey, Prabhu, what's wrong? It's Krishna's kitchen. You got to clean it. No, I don't think you should do that, but you could. Give Maha sweets for pot washers, yeah. So what's the name of this class? Love your pot washer. Yeah. That's the name of this class. When I'm doing the puja on the temple or playing kirtan, my meditation is that I'm only a means of you. So when I'm dressing deities, I'm thinking you are the one who's doing it. When I finish kirtan, devotees frequently tell me they think of you. That's very good. Although if you ever see the way I dress deities, you might laugh. It might actually bring you down a notch. But if it works, yeah. We're instruments of our guru, yeah. So for his satisfaction, we do everything. That's perfect. And that keeps us away from being the enjoyer. I also, Prabhupada told me that I wanted to start a band, and he said, don't do that. But he said, but if you like music, then lead nice kirtan in the temple. So some of the best kirtans I ever lead, especially like if it's a big festival and there's thousands of people, or in Mayapur, it's like 3,000 people at Mangal Arti, and I don't want to think about the people. It's, I have to perform, so many people, they want, it's got to be nice, or what are they going to think of me, I don't want to be there. It's not the mood. So I think Prabhupada told me to lead nice kirtan, so I'm going to do this for him. I just meditate on him. I'm going to sing nice. Someone might say, oh, you're just showing off. You're singing, you're just singing all these little nuances and embellishments, and you're just trying to show off. And I'm trying to sing in a way that I think Prabhupada would like. And whenever I do that, it's always the best kirtan. And I know, Prabhupada liked Bengali kirtan, and I know a little bit about the subtleties of singing, how the Bengalis sing, living in Mayapur and having heard those kirtans. So I try to do that. And then it's like, I'm in the best consciousness I can be in. I'm just thinking of Prabhupada. I'm not thinking that there's a million people. And what if there's not one person? I'm not going to lead kirtan. There's nobody here to hear me. No. We sing for Prabhupada. It's his pleasure. So that's my mood. And that's a good mood. Right? So yeah. That's the right mood, Anuradha. Anuradha. And you can sing for Radha's pleasure also, because you're Anuradha. Perhaps it is, Kishori Mani says, perhaps it's better for men to cover their eyes if they get so agitated. Yeah, we could pass out blindfolds. The kind you sleep with, nightshades. We could pass those out if the men, you could carry them with you, Kishori Mani, in your purse, your bag that you bring to the temple. And if any men complain, just give it to them. The idea is that men are like butter, as they say in England. Men are like butter, or Australia, butter. Yeah, Prabhu, you have any butter? What's butter? You mean butter? Yeah, butter. Men are like butter, or butter. I think they say it that way in India also. Men are like butter, and women are like fire. So all you fireballs out there, just keep the temperature low enough so, they won't melt within the time they're at the temple. You ever try to melt butter on a low flame? It takes a long time. Prabhupada once said, you should stamp on the head of the brahmachari something like, stay cool, or keep in a cool place, something like that. So, it's a balance, because the men should be strong for sure, and we just can't. Women cannot stop existing because men's butter starts to melt. But women can keep the flame low by their dealings with men and by how they appear. So feel sorry for these poor guys. If I could guarantee you, all you women, if I could get you in a 25-year-old male body for like 20 minutes, you would totally understand. You would totally understand how to dress. You would be like, oh my God, those women, why are they dressing that way? You would be just like the men if you actually got in their body. So have compassion for these poor guys. It's just, It's just Maya's arrangement, that the female form is very attractive. Not that the male form is not attractive to women, but the female form is very attractive to men. And some of these poor guys are trying to be brahmacharis, doing their best. So, if the flame is up too high, it just makes it hard for them. And they should be able to stay frozen even in a hot flame, but it's not always possible. So be merciful on these poor boys. Okay. Okay. So now that we've covered that topic, we can begin reading from our document, which I just have to bring up. And we'll continue reading where we left off last week, or last Friday. So, this is... Oh, yeah, this is about the gopis' relationship with Krishna. This is a big purport. This is from Adi 4:30. We've read everything in Bhagavatam about Yogamaya that's relevant. And so, let me see. I'll read what we read yesterday, just give us some context. The influence of Yogamaya will inspire the gopis with the sentiment that I am their paramour. So they don't see Krishna as anything other than their lover, this young, beautiful boy. Purport: Yogamaya is the name of the internal potency that makes the Lord forget himself and become an object of love for his pure devotee, indifferent, transcendental. Well, you know what? I think this is... I'm trying to see if this is actually where we left off. Maybe it is, yeah. It is, okay. The Yogamaya potency creates a spiritual sentiment in the minds of the damsels of Braja, by which they think of Lord Krishna as their paramour. This sentiment is never to be compared to mundane, illicit sexual love. It has nothing, let me repeat, nothing to do with sexual psychology, although the pure love of such devotees seems to be sexual. One should know for certain, let me repeat, for certain, that nothing can exist in this cosmic manifestation that has no real counterpart in the spiritual field. All material manifestations are emanations of the transcendence. The erotic principles of amorous love reflected in mixed material values are perverted reflections of the reality of spirit. But one cannot understand the reality unless one is sufficiently educated in the spiritual science. So 9 cantos of Bhagavatam before you come to Krishna Lila, and then so many chapters, Krishna growing up, and then finally Rasa Lila. So there's some qualifications required. It's not that anyone can understand this, and everyone can easily misunderstand. So now we're going to read from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is in the middle of something, and I don't know what's referring to. Maybe by reading the purport we'll see, but I'll read the verse. Neither the gopis nor I shall notice this, for our minds will always be entranced by another's beauty and qualities. Maybe notice this means that who we notice that I'm... Maybe that there's other gopis there. Or something to help the Leela. Could be that there's no other gopis. Just we just think we're the only ones there, or something that will help that Leela. Purport: in the spiritual sky, the Vaikuntha planets are predominated by Narayana. His devotees have the same features he does, and the exchange of devotion there is on the platform of reverence. But above all these Vaikuntha planets is Goloka, or Krishna Loka, where the original personality of Godhead, Krishna, fully manifest his pleasure potency in free, loving affairs. Since the devotees in the material world know almost nothing about these affairs, the Lord desires to show these affairs to them by coming here, doing his Leela. In Goloka Vrindavan, there is an exchange of love known as Parakiya Rasa. It is something like the attraction of a married woman for a man other than her husband. In the material world, this sort of relationship is most abominable because it is a perverted reflection of the Parakiya Rasa in the spiritual world, where it is the highest kind of loving affair. Such feelings between the devotee and the Lord are presented by the influence of, let's give a big hand for Yogamaya. Yogamaya is doing a great job. The Bhagavad Gita states that the devotees of the highest grade are under the care of Daiva Maya or Yogamaya. Mahatmanas tumam parta daivim prakritim ashritaha. Bhagavad Gita 9:13. Every time Jayadvaita Swami sees me, he quotes that verse, as if I'm some kind of Mahatma. I would like to be drowned. I would like to be drowning in Yogamaya, 24/7. That is a real Mahatma. Those who are actually great souls, Mahatmas, are fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, always engaged in the service of the Lord. They are under the care of Daivi Prakriti, or Yogamaya. Yogamaya creates a situation in which the devotee is prepared to transgress all regulative principles simply to love Krishna. Doesn't apply to us. Hold on. It's right there, Prabhu. I don't have to follow the regular principles. Right there. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, I don't have to follow the regular principles. Right there. Devotees prepared to transgress all regular principles simply to love Krishna. A devotee naturally does not like to transgress the laws. Oh, okay, there's another line. A devotee naturally does not like to transgress the laws of reverence for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but by the influence of Yogamaya, he is prepared to do anything to love the Supreme Lord better. So we're looking at this. We're not imitating it. We're looking, okay, this is, the love of the gopis is so intense, they will leave their husbands to dance with Krishna. I heard in one temple that the women, newly married women, were so enthusiastic to do devotional service that they were at the temple all day. And when their husbands came home from working, tired, hungry, the house wasn't clean, there was no meal, they were at the temple serving all day. Because, after all, you should surrender to Krishna, right? So, you have duties also. So, what these gopis are doing, you can do that also when you're a gopi, but when you're a sadhana, when you're practicing Vaidhi sadhana and you're married, you're going to have to cook for your husband. Sorry for the bad news, but you have to do that. You can't go out dancing with Krishna all the time. So we're understanding this Leela from a philosophical perspective, not from a point that we could imitate it. But we're understanding that Krishna, his greatest enjoyment is to be with the wives, so-called wives of other men. That gives him happiness. And so they enact that Leela. And for them, because it will give Krishna pleasure, then anything goes, right? There's no question of, this is not moral. It is the height of morality to do something to give Krishna pleasure. And if you do something moral, but it doesn't give Krishna pleasure, then you can't call it moral. It's mundane moral. It's not transcendental. It's not absolutely moral. The highest morality is Krishna's pleasure. If you create some morality that doesn't satisfy Krishna, then that so-called morality is against bhakti. And then what's the use of it? Right? I mean, what's the whole point of morality if it takes you away from Krishna? No point. Those under the spell of material energy cannot at all appreciate the activities of Yoga Maya, for a conditioned soul can hardly understand the pure reciprocation between the Lord and his devotee. But by executing devotional service under the regulative principles, one can become very highly elevated and then begin to appreciate the dealings of pure love under the management of Yoga Maya. So because the Leelas are transcendental, unless we become transcendental, we won't understand them. We'll naturally misunderstand them because we're looking at a pure Leela through the filter of something impure, and then we'll have no idea what's going on. So by the grace of Prabhupada, he's explaining it to us so we understand something about the Leela. But and as Prabhupada said, we appreciate how these Leelas are going on under the Yoga Maya potency. So everything is perfect. And so, we have to get our head around this like transcendental immorality, which is actually the highest form of morality. And mundane morality, it's fine if it supports your bhakti, but if it gets in the way, what's the point? Not only what's the point, it's morality in and of itself, neither good or bad. It's how it helps Krishna consciousness. And sometimes it gets in the way. It's possible. In the spiritual loving sentiment induced by the Yoga Maya potency, both Lord Krishna and the damsels of Braja forget themselves in spiritual rapture. By the influence of such forgetfulness, the attractive beauty of the gopis plays a prominent part in the transcendental satisfaction of the Lord, who has nothing to do with mundane sex. Obviously, it can't be mundane because the bodies are spiritual. And spiritual bodies don't have sex desire. So that kind of solves the whole problem. Well, Krishna's dancing with the gopis and the boys and girls. People misunderstand. Hold on, wait a minute. These are spiritual bodies. There's no sexual desire in the spiritual body. There's no sexual intercourse in the spiritual body. So, just, chalk that off your list. It's not the way you think. Because spiritual love of Godhead is above everything mundane, the gopis superficially seem to transgress the codes of mundane morality. This perpetually puzzles mundane moralists. Therefore, Yogamaya acts to cover the Lord and his pastimes from the eyes of mundaners, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:25, where the Lord says that he reserves the right of not being exposed to everyone, which basically is saying, until you're qualified, you won't understand these Leelas. And I think I was making a point in another class, but I'll make it again because it's an interesting point. Some people think they're really smart and learned, and they condemn Krishna's actions with the gopis. But they're just revealing that Naham Prakasha Sarvasya. You can't understand me because you're covered. I've covered you. So they think they're maybe revealing their erudite scholarship, but actually they're revealing their ignorance because they can't enter. If you can't understand the Leela and you're looking at it entirely through the eyes of mundane morality, you've just kind of admitted your guilt as to your lack of qualification to understand it. And so Yogamaya will not let you understand it. Just as Yogamaya enacts the Leela to bring the gopis and Krishna closer, she also will keep people unqualified outside the Leela. Isn't that interesting? So it's kind of funny. I mean, if someone ever told you this, if you were, a little bratty, you could say, well, you've just proven to me that you're an idiot. Because only idiots can't understand this. Or you're just proven to me you have no spiritual qualification. Of course, generally we wouldn't say that. But we would say that to ourselves. Oh, this person, he's just showing he doesn't have the spiritual qualification to understand this. And in some way, you may want to explain to him, if you evolve further in your spiritual life, then you'll be able to understand this. This has nothing to do with mundane morality. It takes. You see these 50 books? Well, you'll have to read them all before you can understand this. It's not easy to understand. That's the idea. Right? The purport goes on. There's more. This is from the Adi 430. We're continuing. The acts of Yogamaya make it possible for the Lord and the gopis in loving ecstasy to sometimes meet and sometimes separate. These transcendental loving affairs of the Lord are unimaginable to empiricists involved in the impersonal feature of the absolute truth. Therefore, the Lord himself appears before the mundaners to bestow upon them the highest form of spiritual realization and also personally relish its essence. The Lord is so merciful that he himself descends to take the fallen souls back to home, back to the kingdom of Godhead, where the erotic principles of Godhead are eternally relished in their real form, distinct from the perverted sexual love so much adored and indulged in by the fallen souls in their diseased condition. The reason the Lord displays the Rasa Lila is essentially to induce all the fallen souls to give up their diseased morality and religiosity, and to attract them to the kingdom of God, to enjoy the reality. That is interesting. I'll read that again. Okay, if you weren't paying attention, please pay attention. The reason the Lord displays the Rasa Lila is essentially to induce all the fallen souls to give up their diseased morality and religiosity, and to attract them to the kingdom of God, to enjoy the reality. A person who actually understands what the Rasa Lila is will certainly hate to indulge in mundane sex life. For the realized soul, hearing the Lord's Rasa Lila through the proper channel will result in complete abstinence from material sexual pleasure. And we've heard this before. And so this gives us a broader understanding of what Prabhupada's saying, because devotees will say, I read Rasa Lila and I feel the same way. Well, if you've read Rasa Lila and it didn't cure you at least a little bit of the desire to enjoy sex in this world, then we would say that you need to go deeper in understanding. And what we're doing in these classes, hopefully, is taking us a little deeper. We have to go deeper in understanding your position as enjoyed, Krishna's position as the enjoyer, how this is the highest form of love manifest. It has nothing to do with anything mundane. So the more you understand that, the more deeply you go into that. Then you become attracted to it. You start to understand the rasa of it, the nature of it. And then what happens? You say, oh, this is, how should I explain this? What happens? Simple explanation is two things happen. You're experiencing something which is greater, and you're understanding something which is greater. And then in that context, you understand that this perverted sexual attraction is it's me again imitating Krishna as the enjoyer, trying to put myself in that position. And it's just pouring fuel on the fire of my lust and destructive to my bhakti. So, obviously sex is a physical need, and we're not talking just about some mental desire or something that's not so physical to give up. It's not just a physical thing, it's the reason we came here. So yeah, it is a big thing to give up. But what Prabhupada's saying here is, if we actually get absorbed in Krishna consciousness and understand his leelas and ultimately are capable of getting some understanding of this leela, it will cure that problem. Because when you understand what is pure, the impure it looks really bad. And when you don't understand what is pure, the impure looks good, isn't it? Have you ever had that experience? Shopping, I think I gave this example before. Sometimes you're shopping and you find a product and you think the product is good, but then you walk down the aisle and you see the same product by a different company, but it's like 5 or 10 times better. And then you realize, oh, this is what this product is supposed to do. This is how it's supposed to look. This is the size it's supposed to be, the power it's supposed to have. That other thing was like, sometimes you buy something you're just going to use once or twice, and so they build it cheaply. It'll only last a while. And it'll do the job, but, not as well, not as easily. It'll be more complicated. But you get the right thing, it'll last for years and years and years. It'll work perfectly every time. It'll be easy to operate. And you realize, oh, okay. Like I do recording. So you might hear something and say, that sounds good. And I'll say, listen to this. So this was with another microphone and different equipment. And you hear that and you're like, oh my God, that sounds so good. Now you listen to the other one and you go, oh yeah, that doesn't sound good. You didn't know until you hear the one that actually sounds good. The one that sounds deep and rich and beautiful and awesome. You go, oh, that's how it's supposed to sound. So it's like that. We think our sexuality is just like so much pleasure. And then as you enter into Krishna Lila, you think, oh, this is the actual product. This other thing is like, that's a Chinese knockoff. Okay. That's the title of today's class. Mundane sex is a Chinese knockoff of Rasa Lila. That's it, right? My friends, they told me once for $10, they bought a watch. It was called a Bolex. Rolex watches are $5,000 to $10,000. Although, your $5 watch will keep the same time as your $10,000 Rolex watch. But so this Rolex was a Chinese knockoff, and it looked just like a Rolex, but it was called a Bolex. I don't think they call it a Bolex because they thought it was a bogus Rolex. Maybe so. But from a distance, the B, the R, it kind of looked the same. So, if someone sees it, it just looks like a Rolex. It cost you $10, not $10,000. And you can impress people. But that Bolex watch, it doesn't operate like a Rolex. And, if someone gave you a Bolex, you might think, hey, this is a great watch. Until you got the Rolex, and you'd be like, oh, okay, now I understand what a good watch is. This is amazing, this watch. So it's like that. Mundane sex life is like a cheap Chinese knockoff. So that's what we're trying to understand here in the last few days of class. How, what is this? Like, what's going on between Krishna and the gopis? What is this love? How is it manifesting? What are the energies? How can we misunderstand it? How does mundane morality play into this? Or our concept of mundane morality, how will that ruin our ability to understand? So the more you understand it, the more you become purified. And as we said, but if you don't have the adhikari to understand and you just become sexually disturbed by hearing it, then, don't listen to it, Wait till you go back to the first canto, start over again, Okay, you have some comments, right? So, we had some latecomers here. Where you all been? You missed the best part. How to answer for asking what is bad in sex. Sex is naturally part of us. Sex is created by God. Therefore, God made something wrong. Yeah, well, eating is also created by God. So you just eat anything, whenever you want. What's the purpose of eating? I'll give you 3 guesses. What's the purpose of eating? If I don't eat, I'll die. Okay, yeah, keep you alive. All right. What's the purpose of sex? 3 guesses. Well, when you have sex, you produce children. Okay. All right. So once you get down the function of a particular action, then you can understand what's extravagance. Then you start, well, do you eat to live or do you live to eat? So, you should eat to live and eat what's healthy. But if you just live to eat, then okay, that's another thing. You're going to maybe kill yourself through eating. So it's the same idea. Sex is for procreation. Nothing bad about it if you do it to raise Krishna consciousness. Have children and make them pure devotees. That's what it's for. The problem is nobody, only religious people understand that. And even amongst religious people, things are kind of going down the drain in many parts of the world. So just like to talk about sex is like purpose of sex is to have children. People think like, oh my God, you're like some antique out of some museum from the Victorian period, like that's so Victorian, sex. We have a word for that. It's called prude. You're such a prude. Sex is for having children. Well, yeah, that's what happens when you do it, unless you do something unnatural to prevent it. So, now, if you're answering that question for non-devotees, it's more difficult. But you're answering that question for devotees, it's very easy, that it's an obstacle. And in a purified state of Krishna consciousness, that attachment, that desire would be gone. And so it's somewhat still putting ourselves in the position of enjoyer rather than Krishna as the enjoyer. Yes? I was reading something today. What was it? Yeah, with the first thing we read today, I think you weren't here when we read this. Krishna steals the gopis' clothes because it makes him happy. You say, well, what's wrong with that? I'll do the same thing. Makes me happy. Well, Krishna making himself happy and you making yourself happy are two different things. When Krishna's happy, everyone in the world is happy. When you're happy, a lot of people are not happy. And basically, only you are happy. So, it's an impediment. It's all over the Bhagavatam. You can read why it's an impediment. You already know that, but you can read to remind yourself. Gopi Jivana says, sometimes I think we struggle more with our senses because we do not follow our natures and express our natural talents. Yes. I mean, if you like to have sex, have, 25 children. Then that sounds like, I don't have so many kids. What are you talking about? But actually, that's the answer. You want to have sex? I can't control myself. Okay, just have a lot of kids. That's what you're supposed to do. And after you have like 5 kids, you won't want any more sex. You'll be burned out. Guaranteed. Well, for most people. Some would want more, but most people would be like, okay, that's enough. Although I saw this show on this Mormon, he had like 6 wives and 29 kids, and he was still going strong. So, he needs the Maha Mantra, I think. Marco says, everyone can afford a Bolex, but few can buy the original Rolex. True love is precious, and we should be willing to pay the highest amount of money we have or make efforts and sacrifices, setting aside what is needed to buy bhakti at Lord Nityananda's. Lord Nityananda's Transcendental Market, yes. Nicely said. You're quite a poet, Marco. Why don't you write some songs with these points? Make these points in this song. Yeah, and Gopi Jivana's point, if you're engaged in service according to your nature, you become satisfied. The more satisfied and happy and full you are, the less you desire sense gratification because, of course, you're already satisfied. And so, And as far as, controlling eating, controlling sleeping, controlling mating, controlling defending, it's, it just requires a lot of work, a lot of tolerance, a lot of So, on one hand, you want to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness and happy, as Gopi Jeev is saying. Just serve according to your nature. You'll be happy and have good sadhana and be full of ananda. And on the other hand, although that's the solution, but on the other hand, sometimes you get attacked. The senses just go beep, 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 and they won't stop. And you have to really be tolerant. It's just a fact. I wish I could make it easier for you. Well, don't eat for 40 days. That would probably help calm your sex desire. But normally, we're going to live a normal life, and sometimes the beeping is going to get strong, and you just have to acknowledge the fact that in trying to become Krishna conscious, we have to control that beeping. It's just like, okay, I'm just gonna deal with it, ignore it, take an ice cold shower, whatever. I'm just gonna tolerate it. That's what we have to do, as best we can. That's the process. It's I wish I could make it easier than that. But sometimes it's not easy, and you tolerate it, you get through it, and you're glad you tolerated it. You don't tolerate it, you regret. Why didn't I tolerate that? I was such a fool. So someone will say, yeah, but sometimes I have to eat dessert. Okay, eat, but not much. Just enough so you don't go completely crazy. But if I don't have sex, I'll go crazy. So all Prabhupada would say is fine, just have children. That's what it's for. So, then you might say, but I don't want children or this or that. And so I just do it once in a while. Yeah, whatever. My job is just to tell you what Prabhupada said. And your job is to figure out how to, what the finish line is. You know what the goal is. So my job is to tell you how Prabhupada said to get there. Maybe you can't do it exactly that way. Maybe you can, you should try. But if you can't, then your job is to figure out what's second best to the ideal. And then, act in a way that eventually you'll get to the finish line. That's it. So, sometimes I'll say things and it's very up here, but I'm just saying it because that's where we're going. That's the goal. So as long as that's the goal, then, you know where you're going and you're good. And Prabhupada said, well, this is how you get to the goal. And you go, well, that's so hard. I can't do it. What can I say? I have to tell you what he said. If you can't do it, then you'll have to figure out what you can do that eventually will get you to the point that you can do it. So, that's second best. But I will tell you how to get from here up to here. You may be down here below what I'm telling you, but, and so try to get at least to here from what I'm telling you. If you can't do it today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. And then from there, you know where to go. Does that make sense? Don't be a Bolex. Don't wear a Bolex. Wear a Rolex. Pay the price. You'll get the reward. Okay. It's time for me to have breakfast. And we will see you who want to chant japa with us. Japa starts at 20 minutes, and I will come on in an hour and 20 minutes around to chant with you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.